What would you do if a barefoot 8-year-old girl walked up to your police car and whispered, "Can you follow me home?" Because what two officers discovered inside that dark apartment would shatter their hearts and change their lives forever, revealing a secret so shocking that this little girl had been carrying the weight of the world on her tiny shoulders for months, and what she had written in her survival notebook would leave you speechless. If you love interesting stories like this that expose the truth, please give this video a thumbs up and tell us in the comments section where in the world you are watching this video, and also do well to smash that subscribe button. It was 5:45 on a Thursday evening when Officer Jake Morrison checked his rear-view mirror, barely noticing the kids on bikes behind him. His partner, Officer Deshaun Washington, sipped cold coffee in the passenger seat. They sat outside a corner store in South Phoenix, Arizona. Not the worst area, but far from safe. People kept to themselves here. No smiles, no waves. The air felt heavy, like everyone was holding their breath. Then she appeared. No shoes, oversized shorts hanging on her tiny frame. Hair in uneven ponytails with bright rubber bands. She couldn't have been older than 8. She didn't cry or stutter, just stood quietly by their patrol car until Washington noticed her. "Hey there," he said, rolling down the window. "You okay?" She looked up with eyes too serious for someone so young. "Can you please follow me home?" Morrison leaned over. "What's wrong? Are you lost?" She shook her head. "No, my house is right over there." She pointed across the parking lot, past a faded mural, down a street lined with broken fences and busted streetlights. Morrison frowned. "Are your parents home?" "I don't have parents," she said simply. "Just my grandma, but she won't wake up." Something about how she said it, flat calm, like she'd already tried everything, made both officers sit up straight. Washington opened his door. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Destiny." "Destiny Johnson." Morrison grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 3C responding to a possible medical emergency at 1623 Oak Street, Apartment 2B. Destiny had already started walking. No running, no looking back. Just slow, steady steps like she'd made this walk 1,000 times before. The officers followed on foot. Morrison stayed back, watching. Washington walked closer, asking gentle questions. She didn't say much, just pointed out cracks in the sidewalk or mentioned where dogs usually barked but weren't today. Something about her movement struck them both. Kids panic, kids cry, but not Destiny. The neighborhood felt heavy too. Overflowing trash cans, yards that hadn't seen care in months, windows patched with cardboard. A quiet tension hung between houses like everyone was waiting for something bad to happen. Morrison broke the silence. "Destiny, is your grandma sick?" She hesitated. "She fell this morning. I thought she was sleeping. Then I tried to wake her up, and she didn't move. So I gave her our last apple and some water, but she just stayed asleep." She looked down. "I think she's really sick." Washington looked at Morrison. They both recognized that tone. It wasn't drama. It wasn't imagination. It was survival. Destiny turned a corner and pointed up a stairwell with a broken railing. "Second floor, doors open. She told me once, if something happens and I can't help, find someone in uniform." She looked up at them. "I saw your car and thought maybe you'd come." That quiet confidence, the kind built by having no other choice, kept her feet moving. The officers followed her upstairs, unsure what they'd find behind that door, but knowing they couldn't turn away. What waited inside apartment 2B would stay with them forever. Destiny didn't knock. She just pushed the door open and walked inside like she'd done it 100 times before. The smell hit first. Not death, but close. Sour, heavy air that told you something had been wrong for a while. The apartment was dark except for one flickering kitchen bulb. Curtains hung with thumbtacks. A pot sat empty on the stove. Rice spilled across the floor. Destiny stepped over it without a word. "Where's your grandma, baby?" Washington asked gently. Destiny pointed to the living room. There, sprawled between the couch and floor, lay an older woman in a faded dress. Miss Ruby Johnson. She wasn't moving. Morrison moved fast, checking for a pulse. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Nothing. Her skin was pale, damp with sweat. There was a pulse, but barely. "She's alive," Morrison said, pulling out his radio. "Dispatch, we need paramedics immediately." Female, late 60s, unresponsive. Washington crouched near Destiny, who stood perfectly still, arms wrapped around herself. "Have you been here alone all day?" She nodded. "I gave her water with the turkey baster. That's how she waters the plants." Morrison looked at a dying plant on the windowsill. Dried leaves, cracked soil. "I didn't want to leave her, but I didn't know what else to do," Destiny said. "We don't have a phone anymore." Washington tried to smile. "You did exactly what you should have." The girl looked around. "It's not usually this messy. Grandma always cleans." Morrison took in the room. Torn cushions, a coffee table propped up with books, unopened mail by the door, most stamped with red ink. Final notice. In the hallway, Morrison found a small bedroom with sheets bunched in a corner and an unplugged heater. Child's drawings covered the wall. Stick figures of a girl and older woman holding hands. A big sun with a smiley face above them. Back in the living room, Destiny pressed a damp cloth to her grandmother's forehead. "She doesn't like cold water on her neck," she said, touching the woman's temple. "She says it makes her brain feel better." Morrison stared, his throat tight. "You've been doing all this by yourself?" She nodded. "I'm the only one who stays with her now. It's just us." Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. "You did the right thing coming to us," Washington said. Destiny looked at him, her face blank but her eyes heavy. "I didn't know if you would care." Morrison crouched beside them. "We care." She blinked. "People usually don't." Morrison checked the fridge. 2 eggs, mustard, and nearly empty milk. That was it. No lights in the back rooms, no working air conditioning. This wasn't just one bad day. This was quiet poverty. The kind nobody reports because nobody sees it. When the paramedics arrived, they worked quickly. Ruby Johnson was dehydrated, her blood pressure dangerously low. As they loaded her onto a stretcher, Destiny followed silently to the door. "Is she going to be okay?" she asked softly. "We're going to do everything we can," the medic replied. "Can I ride with her?" Morrison and Washington exchanged glances. "Do you have other family here?" Destiny shook her head. "It's just me and her." At the hospital, they waited. Destiny clutched a worn notebook with a faded butterfly sticker. When Washington asked about it, she showed him pages filled with careful handwriting. "If Grandma doesn't wake up, wait until morning. If still not up, check for breathing. If breathing, give water and whisper Bible verses." Another page. "If we get kicked out, sleep at church. Ask for officer in blue, not security guard." This wasn't a journal. It was a survival guide written by a child who'd stopped thinking like a child long ago. The social worker, Mrs. Patterson, arrived with questions and clipboards. When she asked about meals, Destiny answered like it was math. "Yesterday, toast with peanut butter, but it tasted funny." Then Mrs. Patterson asked, "Has your grandmother ever asked you to keep secrets?" Destiny looked up sharply. "She told me not to trust people who act like they want to help, but only show up when it's too late." What do you think she meant? She meant don't trust people who don't stay. Morrison and Washington locked eyes. That one sentence said everything. When Mrs. Patterson stepped away, Destiny asked quietly, "Are they going to take me away?" Morrison knelt in front of her. "Nobody's here to take you away. We're just making sure you're safe while your grandma gets better." "But I am safe," she insisted. I've been taking care of her. There was no whining, no fear, just matter-of-fact acceptance of a job no child should have. How long have you been making sure things are okay at home? Washington asked gently. She thought for a moment. Since winter. Grandma's legs don't work like they used to. I walk to the store when we need food, but we don't always have money. So sometimes we just have oatmeal. She calls me her little soldier. Washington exhaled slowly. You shouldn't have to be a soldier at 8. Destiny looked down at her notebook. If I don't, who will? Morrison had kids of his own. The thought of them navigating the world alone made his stomach twist. We can't just leave her with paperwork, he muttered to Washington. I know, Washington replied. But what can we do? Morrison stepped back toward Destiny. What do you need right now? What's one thing that would help? She looked up slowly. Grandma says when you don't know what to do, you start with a warm meal. Washington smiled. All right then. Let's start there. They brought sandwiches from the cafeteria. Destiny ate carefully, like she was saving every crumb. Does anyone at school know what's happening? Morrison asked. She shook her head. I don't tell people. Grandma says folks don't really listen unless they already care about you. Morrison leaned forward. Do you think we care? She paused, studying him. I don't know yet. That hit harder than he expected. When CPS said she'd have to go to foster care in another city, Morrison made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. Let me take her, he said. I've got space. My wife's home. My kids are close in age. After calls and emergency paperwork, it was arranged. Destiny would stay with the Morrisons for one night. At their house, Morrison's wife Sarah welcomed Destiny with warm food and soft clothes. That night, Destiny wrote in her notebook, New rule, if it's really bad, find someone who stays. The next morning at the hospital, Ruby Johnson was stable. Over the following days, the community rallied. Neighbors brought donations. A church offered repairs. Teachers called with tutoring offers. Destiny started sleeping through the night. Sarah taught her to make pancakes. Washington brought coloring books. When Ruby finally woke up, the first name she asked for was her granddaughter. When Destiny walked in with a new notebook, this one with a red heart sticker, she whispered, I didn't let go, Grandma. I did what you said. Ruby tried to lift her hand. She couldn't quite reach, but it didn't matter. They were both still here, still together. This wasn't about charity or pity. It was about paying attention, about not letting quiet kids slip through cracks, about listening when someone too small to be noticed says something big. Destiny Johnson didn't just save her grandmother's life. She reminded two grown men why they became officers in the first place. Not to enforce rules, but to protect the ones no one else sees. Sometimes the strongest voice in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one that whispers, Can you follow me home?